everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show. Sorry about the short notice. We're just trying to get this up as fast as we can. Kenny and Renny post-game show after what I believe was the most complete Winnipeg Jets game of the season up to this date. That's saying something considering how many complete games we've seen from them going forward, going throughout this season. An absolute masterpiece, and something that I will say, we'll get into it. We'll break all this down, tons to break down. I mean, the top line, what they're doing, Adam Lowry, another great night. The third line doing their thing. We can get into the goaltending a little bit. I have to have some kind of ideas, maybe ideas of just of how things maybe could be handled different to get Laurent Brossoit feeling a little bit more comfortable in the net, because he did not look like it. That's 3 starts for Laurent Brossoit that I didn't think he's looked like the version of Laurent Brossoit we saw down the stretch with the Vegas Golden Knights last year, and definitely in the playoffs as he, helped topple the Winnipeg Jets and take them out of the playoffs. But the one thing I want to dive into before we get going here is, okay, the Winnipeg Jets as an organization went through a little bit of a war, a little bit of a civil war. We all know what we're talking about here. We know Rick Bowness last season, how he ended things, how he said he was disgusted with the Winnipeg Jets and their play, and how the players responded to that. And what that meant for this organization going into the offseason. I will say this: when you say the Winnipeg Jets play the way that they played tonight, the style of play like this, again, I go back to it. I'm not going to, because there's tons of examples for this, but this is like a great example of, the Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. For me is, I know I did it a lot of times last year, but the Rick Bowness system, like the Rick Bowness system has you covered when you play it properly. It's a winning system. It was for the Winnipeg Jets at the top half of the season last year, and it is so far for the Winnipeg Jets again. Now, this is interesting. I'd said this to Ken. It was just a light bulb moment for me. Like, when you see the Winnipeg Jets play like this, and if you're Rick Bowness and you know what the Winnipeg Jets last year were capable of, because you saw it for a good chunk of the first half of the season, but you're seeing it again now, what a Winnipeg Jets team that I think, other than the beginning of last year, looks different than almost any iteration of the Winnipeg Jets that we've seen over the years. With the defensive acumen that they have, the effort that's put into back pressure and back checking and turning that into offense. And those are themes we're going to have a field day with on this show here. But if you're Rick Bowness and you knew that the Winnipeg Jets game could look like what it looked like tonight, I think you'd be disgusted too to see how they played and how they whimpered out of the playoffs last season. And I'm starting to wonder if Rick Bowness, in that moment of frustration, coming out and saying that, coming out and talking about, being disgusted and that frustration on full display, if the Winnipeg Jets maybe as a team didn't really get why he was disgusted. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think they were a little bit like, whoa, what's going on here? Why is he saying that he's disgusted with us? I mean, we've gone out and this is how we've played for a number of years. Now, we know he talked about the Jets going back to their old habits, but I think the Winnipeg Jets, if you ask them right now, the way they're playing, the results they're getting, the way that it's not a sacrifice of offense to play defense, but actually builds on the offense to play defense right now. I wonder if the Winnipeg Jets, or some of them, would maybe be cluing in right now and be like, that's why he was disgusted. That's why he was so frustrated at the end of the season, because when we do this, this is what we can look like. This is what we're capable of. And I guess I would say this. I'd said it at the beginning of the season. I didn't know how the Winnipeg Jets were going to respond to the offseason, to that kind of fight they had with their coach. I think the vast majority of us, a good chunk of us anyways, in the media, Jets fans, thought that maybe last year, after the players came out and kind of, I always say they held a mutiny against their head coach. I think a lot of us thought that it was done for Rick Bowness in this town. Rick Bowness stuck around, went through the summer, and went to those very Winnipeg Jets players who he said, I'm disgusted by your play. And they held a mutiny against him. And he turned around and he said, fine, but what I need you to do is get back in line and get back to playing the system that I know is going to work for this team. He convinced them to do it, and 13 games in the season have the Jets humming along, playing his system to an absolute T. Hey, the coaching staff I know he's not here right now. The coaching staff has a hand in this. But you have to think how remarkable it is that Rick Bowness had this team playing great hockey last year. They abandoned it. He called them out for it. They pushed back and held a mutiny against him. And he calmly handled that, turned around, and now has won the Winnipeg Jets over and has them back playing a system, I would say, built on the old system that we saw at the beginning of last year and added to it that has them looking how they looked tonight. Ken's going to have a different Johnson Group got you covered play of the game, as he should, because there's a great example of it. But holy smokes, just take it in for a second and think about what Rick Bowness and his coaching staff have done when this team looked like it had fallen off a cliff last year. He's dusted them off and has them playing some of the most impressive Winnipeg Jets hockey I have ever seen since I started covering this team in 2014. Absolutely great stuff. That's my take on it. We're going to bring Ken, the man with the best music in the business, here to have a conversation about it. Can't wait for it. So let's not wait for it. Let's bring him in right now. Here comes Kenny. Ken, it would be hard to suggest much could look better than the Winnipeg Jets look tonight, but loving that suit, got the poppy going, you're rocking it here. I said it's going to be nice to get back into the Vittorio Rossi threads, and here we are looking like $1 million. I forgot about this tie, that it's this subtle, off kind of burgundy / purple. Just one of the great finds that the Frankie and the boys can set you up with. If you head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue, you know what to do. Head down there, walk in, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you, and let them know that you're here to see Frankie and the boys and you need them to take care of you. And that's what they do. They always take care of their boys down there. They always take care of their gals. It's a great place to go check out. Please do that. So if you're in the market for looking good, and everybody should be in the market for looking good. Ken, what did you think of that game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty impressive effort by the Jets in a lot of fronts. There was a time where Nashville found a way to hang around, even though it was pretty one-sided affair. But overall, I thought the Jets were pretty sound structurally. I liked a lot of what we saw offensively in terms of what they were able to generate and create. Overall, very sound effort. They did a lot of great things. They balance on display again. You saw guys standing up for each other. You saw Dylan Samberg laying out and blocking shots. You saw people battling. A couple things that were a little bit loose in terms of line changes. Consecutive bench minors don't happen terribly often, but overall, I mean, it's just another sound effort. I think what we're finding is the Jets are doing an excellent job, as we've been talking about the last few shows, within the Central Division, which is massive for them.
Huge.
It's one of the reasons they made the playoffs last year, and it's one of the reasons they're off to such a strong start this year. The top line continues to shine. Nice job by them.
Interesting.
Yeah,
indeed. That's happening.
Indeed, yeah.
Hold on a sec. Before it's hanging in the room like rotten, really rancid meat. Ken, really NBHA Ball Hockey says, somebody remind Kenny not to break up the first line. If people need to be reminded of this, the third line that has been going for a long time and continues to go, great night for them tonight. And the first line who hadn't been going, Ken had suggested breaking up that third line, putting Nino Niederreiter up onto the top line, and all of Ken's, I like to call it Stockholm Syndrome. Ken, it's the only explanation for me, the people in the chat room who are following along with you, because to me, there's only one explanation for having that opinion, and it's a little bit of like lost mind, like the Pied Piper. You were started playing the flute and they got into line and followed you into maybe your worst take ever on this show, Ken. I have to say 20 combined points between Alex Iafallo, Kyle Connor, and Mark Scheifele since your call to break that line up and also break up the line that was working before that. Ken, there has to be some kind of acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, it was a little bit extreme to suggest what you were suggesting. And maybe, just maybe, if the Winnipeg Jets are listening to the KNR show, that Scott Arniel took a look at what Kenny was saying and thought to himself, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Come on, there's got to be some kind of acknowledgement. Bust it
Well,
up.
there's a reason why Scott Arniel is in the coaching chair, and I'm on the sidelines commenting on the suggestions box here. So
exactly,
that's
it's okay.
That's
it's
not
okay
news.
to admit it. Just let it go, Ken.
Yeah, because I was completely wrong that the first line needed to do more offensively. Yeah, I'm not
said
taking
that. I preached patience.
That was the whole point, Sean. That was the whole point.
You preached this, taking the Lego tower and smashing it on the floor and then starting to rebuild it.
No,
again.
really.
That's what you said. I said let's just sit there and see what kind of Lego tower we're coming up with here.
What I said was that Alex Iafallo's heavy effort and hard work would fit just as well on the Lowry line as it was on the top line, and that Nino Niederreiter might be able to spark it. But guess what? Kyle Connor's up to 11 goals. And my prediction of 50 for him last year that didn't come true might be, he might be pushing that number before long here based on how well he's playing. And it's just impressive to see. Mark Scheifele had an assist added. He's up to 4 points here. We have Kyle Connor, hat trick, 4 points. Iafallo's got his offensive mojo flowing here. No doubt about that. I mean, Roy Mack, there you go. Good.
Roy
Thanks
Mack
for playing.
says, this is great. Roy Mack says, Kenny is never afraid to admit when Renny is wrong. That's what he says. I get it.
Hey, I'm happy to keep the receipts here. It's no problem. Like I said, Alex Iafallo was working very hard. It just, that line didn't have a lot of chemistry or flow, and guess what? They stuck with it, and now they look like a dominant line. So
patience, young grasshopper. That is a receipt I will keep. I called for patience, and right now you may not want.
No, you didn't call for patience.
Right now,
that was out of my mind to suggest a 7-time 20-goal scorer couldn't help the top line. Is what you said.
I never said it couldn't help the top line. I remember I said that the only worst take I could imagine was you suggesting the Jets trade for Wheeler, bring him back, and break up all the lines that were working to try and get Blake Wheeler's season going. That was
that wasn't an exaggeration by any stretch. Blake Wheeler on the board with his first goal with the Rangers tonight. By the way, good timing for you on that one.
Celebrate good times. Yeah, there we go.
No, the first line's rolling. I mean, and of course, the coaching. Guess what? The coaching staff knows more than we do. This just
than you.
Okay.
I think I was on side with them on this one.
Yeah,
actually, we've got really good examples, Ken, of a lot of things that we got right on this show that we predicted would happen as of late. Sure. Including the power play, which we had talked about after that Rangers game and suggested it was starting to turn things around. Yeah. One of the things that we talked about was they needed a better net front presence. We've got a great Kyle Connor story where he talks about exactly that. We'll get to that. I guess I just want to say this. I think the pristine wake-up call of the game, I was going to throw it towards Gustav Nyquist because I thought that when they were down and they had the penalty and he decides to stay behind and down the ice rather than getting back to help his team, and he tries to take out Mark Scheifele in that play there, seemed like wake-up worthy to me to put a Jets power play that looked great and has looked great lately on a 5-on-3. That was, to me, pristine roofing, the wake-up call of the game, no doubt. But I don't think it always has to be negative. I think sometimes the pristine roofing wake-up call can be an example of waking up, and I don't think there's any doubt at all that Mark Scheifele's top line, along with Alex Iafallo and Kyle Connor, have woken up. And, hey, if you want a glorious wake up like that, well, give a glorious wake up to our main man, North End Rick. He's the guy that you want to get a hold of. If you want to have that kind of quality work you're seeing from the Jets top line, you'll get that quality work from Pristine Roofing. It's that time of year. Like I said, it doesn't know whether it wants to snow or rain or be ice or melt or whatever. And that's, I know, wreaking havoc with some of you in your roofing and siding and exteriors. So give North End Rick the wake up call that the Winnipeg Jets top line has clearly got at 1-204-981-6289, or you can call Pristine Roofing directly at 1-204-237-7663. Ken, the floor is back to you.
Yeah, I just want my runner up or honorary commentary on the wake up would be the if the goal had not counted because of the glancing rub of the glove outside of the blue paint, and it's still
again, I you know what, my inbox, and I've been talking with Pat Rathwell, a former ref, about this, and we've been having this conversation. My litmus test, because like it seemed like everyone was losing their minds over the refs tonight. My litmus test, how I do this, I watch a lot of games outside of the Winnipeg Jets because the Coyotes are coming. I got to do a Coyotes game. I got to do a Tampa game. So I'm always watching other games, and I invariably I watch other teams play, and rarely do I ever think to myself, man, the referees are totally blowing this game. And invariably in every game I watch, the home crowd at some point is chanting, refs, you suck, refs, you suck. I don't know that a Boston Bruins fan would have tuned in tonight and watched this game and been like, oh my God, the refereeing is the worst we've ever seen. I don't think that it's like, to me tonight, the complaints that everyone is having, I don't want to get too much into this. And I know I like to say, I don't like getting into the refs. And I think I find myself, which is crazy, because as a player, I probably yelled at Pat Rathwell a billion times. But sometimes
we've got the receipts on that too.
But I mean, yes, it's the first thing I did. I tweeted right off the bat, that is not goaltender interference.
Oh.
But what the officials did was the officials saw that he bumped the glove, and he doesn't have the benefit that we have of slow motion replay of an above cam that gives you a perfect view of whether or not Saros was in or out of the crease. He bumps the glove. If he's in the crease and he bumps the glove, there's a case for goaltender interference. So he saw the bump. He didn't know whether it was in or not. He made the call, but then they went and they did the right thing. They deliberated over it. They got the call right. To me, this is a non-issue. This is an example of the NHL officiating working the way it's supposed to work. I don't see a big issue with that, but
No, for sure. He just was so vehement and waving it off for such a minor bump or whatever. And you would also argue that it was the Predators defenseman that pushed him in. I mean, he also could have had time to reset. Regardless, it was a nothing play in the game. It just seemed like such a strange sequence. And I mean, the Jets took a bunch in a row. But I'm sorry, I mean, Brendan Dillon plays hard, but it was slashing. I mean, he slashed right on his stick.
He entirely slashed.
It was an obvious penalty. I mean, Ehlers at the end of his shift, he was tired. He grabbed a hold, like he took his hand off his own stick and grabbed the guy. That's an obvious penalty. One of the bench minors, you might have thought it was 50-50, but when Morgan Barron jumped onto the ice, he didn't mean it, but he impeded the play. So the ref had no choice but to call it. So
exactly.
Anyways, the whole conspiracy theory that's also a wake up to people who think it's a conspiracy theory. And somebody else in the early going here was beaking Lauren Brossoit's gray pads and saying they were ugly. I'm like, come on, that is a full wake up. Also, it was a name I didn't recognize. We welcome you to the show, but it's one of the best looking kits in the NHL. So there's nothing ugly about it. Now, we'll get into Lauren Brossoit in a minute, but I mean, that's just my extra 2 cents there. But it was just such a weird sequence. Now, good on them for getting it right. Now, that's also part of. I mean, I would say they did wake up. They did have a chance to talk about it, and they're like, okay, well, this is what I saw. This is what I saw. This is what I saw. There you go. Anyways, let's keep going.
Let's not waste any more time on the refs. It's too good of a game, too much good going on to even spend time on something.
And again, it's a hard job. It's a hard job. Like
again, like I said, we've got high definition instant replay in slow motion, and
they're
we
calling
see it.
We're
like, look at these idiots, right? It's Pat Rathwell, I thought, like pointed out, he disagreed with a couple of calls, but that Morgan Barron call, or non-call, where Morgan Barron slashed the other player's stick and broke his stick over it. And I believe that earned a refs you suck chant in the building because
they thought
Morgan Barron slashed the other player and his stick broke.
But I think what happened,
people thought that it should have been a penalty because his stick broke.
It's the fans thought the other guy slashed him, though. But I agree with you.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. They got it wrong.
The Jets actually got lucky. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what so that is my point. Is it's like the building is losing its mind, chanting "refs, you suck." And if anyone got away with a penalty, it's the Jets in that. Okay, move on from that. There's too much to talk about. Let's get to Adam Lowry. Just because I'd said in my hit with Sportsnet after this guy is the very pulse of the Winnipeg Jets right now. Like, gets in a fight, walks out, does it again. He's already got an assist to start things in that game. I think a lot of people were thinking with the empty net, there was a good chance he was going to he was ending up with the Gordie Howe hat trick, or Kyle Connor was going to end up with the hat trick. But just what can be said that we haven't said already about Adam Lowry and his leadership of this team?
Yeah, I mean, all of the things here. I mean, Adam, coming to the defense of Rasmus Kupari, I thought it was a clean hit personally by Lozon. It wasn't real. I mean, he kind of rode him a little bit high, but this is, I mean, I love this. Adam admitted it after. He goes, I didn't really see the hit, but he saw his player go to the bench awkwardly. So he's like, well, let's go. Lozon says, sure. And again, respect is such an important thing. And Sean, you were in a lot more fights than I was, but for good reason. But the fact that the fact that Lozon respects Adam enough that he doesn't bounce on him when he felt like he slipped right away, that fight could have been over in 3 seconds. But instead, he let him get back up. Then they square back off, and it's an intense fight. The second one, Adam is like, clean hit. So he delivered the clean hit. So he's wondering why he has to go. And he's like, well, this Cole Smith guy is trying to make an impression on his new head coach. Fine. But he just thought, it's fine to want to get engaged in that situation. But Smith kind of jumped him. Now, let's not kid ourselves, Sean. If you or I were getting into a tilt with Adam Lowry, or someone who's 6'5", you don't really blame the guy for wanting to get the first punch in, right? But
no.
And Adam understands the situation. But I mean, we talk about this all the time. I think it's absurd that guys have to fight after clean hits. And in this situation, actually both hits were clean. But you understand stepping up for teammates and all of those things, and what it means in the grand scheme of things. So neither here nor there. Adam, also the confession is Knuckles not feeling the best after 2 fights, and quick to admit, I have no intention of fighting twice in one period. Adam's playing too well for the Jets to have to spend 10 plus minutes in penalties in the penalty box, yet he still found a way to be an effective player, on the penalty kill, everything else. But, the only reason he played 13-26 is because he spent 10 minutes in the box. So, unfortunate for the Jets, but there again, you had other guys like, Rasmus Kupari stepped up and played on that line for a bit. Lowry just doing what Adam Lowry does, as you said. I mean, leading on and off the ice, everything, talking his appreciation for Laurent Brossoit being able to pick up a win, for Dylan Samberg blocking 9 shots, all of the things that we're going to continue to talk about here in the game itself. But yeah, I mean, Adam is playing at, and Sean, we talked about this with Adam the day he got announced as captain. He knew, it was unlikely for him to score at the rate that he scored at during the playoffs, but he wanted to impact the game. And that's what he's doing. He's impacting the game, whether it's on the score sheet, whether it's with a big physical hit, whether it's blocking a shot, winning. He's among his team leaders in face-off percentage. He's on the penalty kill. He's doing all of the things that he needs to do. And he's doing it so well. And with such a, he does, for a big guy who plays so mean, he does everything with such grace when it comes to his off-ice presence. And he's really handling the, he's just barely 2 months on this job, and he's handling it incredibly well.
I'll say this about Adam Lowry. I think that, like, what strikes me about him time and time and time again is, like, I don't know, the word I think is noble. Like, he's a noble guy. Like, so Ken, he gets into that first fight there and he slips and he goes down, and Lozon lets him get up, which I have all the respect in the world for that, right? Like, if you're doing that, you are saying to that guy, I know that I didn't get you down. I respect you enough to allow you to get back up, and let's resume this. So that's noble. And what's like Lozon was noble in that situation, but Adam Lowry talks about that in the post game, right? He goes through that fight and says like that he let him down and let him get up, and talks about that. Like, that's the right thing to do. There's a hockey player's code that goes along with it. The guys who treat each other with respect do those kind of things. So he goes and he does that. But what he doesn't mention in the post-game interview, Ken, is that Lozon slips as well and goes down, and Adam Lowry lets him up afterwards as well. So he's sitting there and he's pumping up the opposition guy about the good things that he did there, and he's not mentioning the things that he did. Adam Lowry at every single turn, like I just can't imagine in the game of hockey. I'm sure he's like, I would guess he's like this in life as well, Ken, but he just always does the right thing, whether it's respecting the opposition, whether it's standing up and fighting Ryan Reeves in a situation where he feels he needs to do it, whether it's like leading by example and constantly going out and like playing the game the right way. He's just always doing the right thing. And I'll say this, Ken, like, I know it's a stupid small sample size, 13 games into the season that he's been the captain. I think we're already at the stage where we can have the conversation that Adam Lowry is the best fit as captain, and maybe the best captain the Winnipeg Jets 2.0 have ever had. I mean, I don't know that I saw Blake Wheeler lead the team the way that Adam Lowry has done it, and I don't believe that I saw that out of Andrew Ladd either. I'm not saying that those guys didn't show captainly details, but I don't think that those guys are capable of being the level of captain that Adam Lowry has shown already 13 games into the season. I think that the future of the Winnipeg Jets with him wearing the C is bright. And if we're talking about holding on to receipts, I'll readily admit I thought that it should have been Josh Morrissey who got picked for the captain. Like, I thought it was a virtual tie, but I'd put Morrissey first. One of the reasons why is I think with a promotional material and stuff like that that's out there, if you get the guy who's more of a star around the league, it's beneficial. But there is nothing that can be taken away from Adam Lowry as a captain of this hockey team, and there's nothing that can be taken away from the Winnipeg Jets by the way they've reacted to that captaincy and the style and brand and grit of game that they are playing. I think that Kevin Cheveldayoff and Rick Bowness went out and said, we want to find a guy that represents the city of Winnipeg, and a guy that we want to be a figurehead that everyone in that roster tries to emulate and tries to follow. I think that's happening right now, and I think it's one of the reasons the Winnipeg Jets are playing one of the best brands of hockey I've seen them play since they returned to Winnipeg.
Yeah, I mean, Adam got an A last year when they stripped Blake Wheeler of the captaincy, and the Jets had the best start in franchise history. So, I mean, this is a guy who has always had a strong voice when it comes to the leadership group, with the exception, I mean, Dave himself told Mike McIntyre he felt the year when Dave Lowry took over as, interim head coach, that it was tough on Adam because, having your son on the team makes things a little bit uncomfortable at times. So anyways, Adam is doing an awesome job. And there's no doubt. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, there are going to be difficult times, but like the Jets are already going through some adversity in the early going in terms of the on-ice stuff they've had to deal with. So, I mean, that's the thing. You always find out what teams are made of when times are tough. And I mean, the Jets have made sure that they're off to such a great start this year. I mean, they're doing a good job of putting losses behind them, and, they're basically on a humongous roll as it turns out. And, again, leadership is part of it. But I mean, Adam is always the first guy to say, he's been leaning on guys like Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele, and it's still a collective when it comes to the leadership, even though he's the guy wearing the C. And yes, he is a humble guy and a noble guy. That's a great word for it. But yeah, I mean, he's handling the captaincy as well as anyone could. And, he should be saluted for that. There's no doubt about it.
Hey, I want to just make this turn here. I love this. In Bones We Trust says Sweet Lou needs to have an intervention with Kenny's Nino up to the first line. Hot take. I think Sweet Lou is the only guy who could actually reach you and get it through your head what you've done to your reputation with that take. But in the meantime, Ken, just until you get that intervention from Sweet Lou, please just give Sweet Lou a shout out here.
Yeah, for folks who are in the realty market, whether you're buying or you're selling, Lou Ferlin is your man from Royal LePage Dynamic Realty. You can reach him at 204-791-9971 or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU@LUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast, for which we are eternally grateful. And Sean, I think we're going to that idea that we got from my pal Donnie Bergman. I think we're going to have to get the buy and sell. We're going to have to incorporate. We'll start to incorporate that into the show.
Let's do that.
Maybe not tonight, but
here,
there's the tease for it.
We can. Should I give the audience an idea of what it is? And then,
sure. Yeah. They can put their votes in the chat room, but I think it's a good idea.
Because Sweet Lou does, both, and he does them as good as it's done. He both buy, he helps you buy, he both helps you sell. Think of it kind of like a stock market play. Who are you buying? Who are you selling right now? Like you're probably buying Kyle Connor right now at this stage because he's absolutely on fire, and the first line, the players around him are playing well. Who thought they wouldn't? I mean, it seemed like it was obvious that it was going to go in that direction. And maybe you're selling on Rasmus Kupari if you're looking for goals, if you're in some kind of league or something like that, and it's based on actually getting points and achieving what you're trying to achieve in the game of hockey, which is score goals. Maybe you're selling on Rasmus Kupari right now because hey, he had chances tonight, Ken, and you'd pointed that out. He's getting those chances. I actually, this is one of my favorite lines. What did you write to me about him? I love this. It was, oh yeah, it's Ken texted me, Kupari with another chance, but can't find it. And I responded, I think you just wrote his career retrospective, Ken. So to me, I mean, it's a guy who puts himself in a position, but his history tells us he doesn't capitalize on those. And what we're seeing from him currently right now is a guy who can generate and can give himself chances. But cashing in on those chances is a tough one. Hey, I just wanted to say this and relate this. We talked about Adam Lowry being noble, always kind of doing the right thing. I'll say this about Cambrian Credit Union, not quite the Kenny and Renny OGs, but right there. They've been there with us from the very, very, very close to the beginning. They've always done right by us, Ken, which is why we both have our mortgage with them, why my kids have unfee accounts with them, why my family's been there. And talk about doing the right thing. Cambrian Credit Union always involved with the the sponsorships, the donations, always involved in the community. So one of the reasons we're with Cambrian is it's an organization that to us always looks like they're doing the right thing. And backing that up. So good on them, the near Kenny and Renny OGs. Ken, let us get into why you think that. Oh, let's get into this. We were talking about this, Kyle Connor, a little bit earlier on, talking about one of the things that we called was getting Netfront traffic to the power play. Kyle Connor had an interesting revelation about what happened behind the scenes and one of the reasons he believes their power play is turned around. Take it away, my man.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the puck movement a lot, but, obviously getting to the net is imperative. And we saw, Nino Niederreiter get to the net against Arizona when he, redirected that great pass from Nikolai Ehlers. I mean, we saw great net front presence from Alex Iafallo before he moved down to give himself or provide an option for Kyle Connor on the Mark Scheifele goal the other day. And, today it's another classic, Guess what? This time it's a 5-on-3, and there's Cole Perfetti banging it home on a rebound. I mean, there we go. I mean, the Jets are doing a great job, and it's not just one person; it's guys on each unit. They're doing a much better job, and Kyle Connor's been so insightful this year, Sean. Heard him with Paul Edmonds on the pregame today, and him talking after the game as well about when you ask him about the power play, just really. The Jets were fed up with being 0 for 20. I mean, they knew that they weren't playing well enough and doing the right things. So he comes out, they do a good job. You get some traffic, you're moving the puck. Now you're snapping it around. You're opening up some more shot lanes, and now they're getting some reward. And it's so wild, right? I mean, we think of the struggles in 0 for 20, and the Jets are 27th, 28th, 29 in the NHL in the power play. All of a sudden, they go 4 for 8. Now they score today again. Now they're up to 20th, and soon enough, they're maybe middle of the road. So, I mean, it's something where we knew that there's enough skill out there. Made a couple of important tweaks, shifting Ehlers and Perfetti around. And, I said this with Kelly on the pregame as well. I mean, nobody is banging the drum more for Nikolai Ehlers on the top unit than me. But for him to be just another guy on that top unit, whereas now he can be the centerpiece and the guy who, is the key distributor and shooter on that second unit, it's a better fit. Now, can he use a little bit more ice time? Of course. But right now, the top unit has benefited from Cole Perfetti being on it. And that's not a knock on Ehlers. It's just Ehlers needs to have the puck on his stick more. And generally speaking, the top unit runs through Mark Scheifele. So there weren't enough touches for him, and he's not rolling at the level that we're used to him being at. So Netfront presence has been massive. Scott O'Neill talked about it in the postgame as well. And it's about a willingness to go to those hard areas. And Sean, quite frankly, since the Jets got Nino Niederreiter, Vladislav Nemestikov pre-deadline, and since they added guys like Iafallo and Velarde, even though he's still hurt, for folks who've been asking for updates, Scott O'Neill told us today Gabriel Velarde was on the ice on his own before the Jets skated today. So next step for him will be added, get him into a non-contact sweater out with his teammates. We'll see when that happens. I don't think it will be imminent. It'll be 4 weeks on Tuesday. I'm not expecting him to be ready. Could it be in the 4th week? We'll see what happens. I would think it's more likely to be in that 5th week where when he comes back into the lineup. And just quickly, when he comes back, I think you could ease him in by starting him on that second line. I don't think he needs to automatically go back up. Now, it'll depend on how Alex Iafallo's playing, but based on how it's going right now, I think that you're probably bumping Vladislav Nemestikov down, and you're having Velarde or Cole Perfetti play center with Nikolai Ehlers on that second line. I think that's where I see him coming back into the lineup. I don't know. Well, what about you, Sean? I mean, what's your take on that quickly?
Well, hear me out. What about the idea of breaking up both the first line and the third line?
Okay. I'm trying to be as polite as possible, but if you want to talk about rotten takes, maybe we should talk about the Oilers for a little while. I know it's not an Oilers show, but
no, too much to talk about here. And before we do that, it's been called for. I'm feeling it. I'm in the zone. Robert Sutton says headband banger. I've got the best headband banger out there that there is, brought to us by one of the best musicians my favorite Kenny and Renny musician. He's the man. Let's make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Okay, before we get into all the goals that came off it, I want to have a little conversation quickly about, I thought there was great stuff in the post game today. Adam Lowry, like I said, the kind of nobility that he showed in having those conversations. Kyle Connor revealing about the Jets getting together and having that meeting and just basically walking out of it and being like, we need to get to the net front more often. And something we called for on the show that I said we were starting to see in that Rangers game. And then all of a sudden now what we're seeing is chaos in front of the net that's created when the shots get there. Chaos in front of the net means that the defenders have to collapse. Collapsing means there's more room for Kyle Connor to shoot. I mean, there was a couple times Kyle Connor could have had 5 goals tonight, right? There were 2 great saves that Saros made on one-timers on the power play by Kyle Connor. So that's working well. But I think what we're seeing here at this stage right now, Ken, and I love that. So if we're talking about good comments after the game, Scott O'Neill I thought really did a good job of handling the idea of the evolution. And I don't want to say evolution, but I guess it's just kind of like the building blocks to their game that we're seeing from the Winnipeg Jets so far this year. He'd said that he, for the most part, has thought that Mark Scheifele, that top line, before they exploded the way they've exploded, have been really good defensively this year. And that I think there's something to be said about that line being dry to the point that we're having these conversations about what do you need to do to get that first line going. And through all that, that line stayed committed to defense, stayed committed to the system that they were playing, with the suggestion by the coaches for the longest time that this defensive style is going to lead to offense at some point. They stayed with it. Like, what happened to the Jets last year, if you listen to their coaching staff, is all of a sudden they started falling back into their old habits and they just couldn't get out of it. It was a downward spiral, right? Well, oftentimes that happens when things don't go well and you start to squeeze the stick and then you start to try and go back to the things that may have worked for you in the past. Give credit to that first line. They did not do that. They didn't cheat the game. They were playing it right this entire season. And now all of a sudden that offense that the coaches promised and said, if you do this, if you back check, if you back pressure, if you lift sticks on players going back and turn it back the other way, that transition game is going to come and it's going to lead to offense. Well, that's what we heard from Scott Arniel today, is basically the transition part of that game that wasn't there has clicked. And now the Winnipeg Jets are absolutely on fire offensively because they're playing this system and being a defense first team, which is why their possession metrics are so good, which is why they're consistently out shooting the other team. But now the puck's going in the net because it's clicked. It's clicked how they do this. And I have to say this, it's almost a reverse engineering thing. For all those years, Ken, I would talk about this Jets team and I would talk about the idea that I thought that they were very opportunistic. They'd get a lot of opportunistic scoring. They would play in a game. They would suck. They would play terribly. Their attitude seemed to be bad. Their effort level seemed to be bad, but they were opportunistic scorers. They were the kind of players that I thought, like, you give them an opportunity, 9 times out of 10, they're going to score more often than the opposition, which I thought tonight was a great example because there was a couple times, speaking of guys who could have had a lot of points, Forsberg could have had 4 goals tonight. He missed two open nets and could have had but the Jets are, to my liking, more likely to lock in on that. But in the past, I think they were, because they cheated for offense. This is reverse engineering by the Winnipeg Jets head coach and their coaching staff that started last year, where they said, I know the Jets have this inordinate ability to capitalize on opportunities. What we're going to do is we're going to get them to play the game the right way and eventually lead them to a place where they see that opportunistic scoring still exists within them, but they can also play the game the right way and defensively at the same time. So the Jets have taken their ability to score that they've shown for all those years. In essence, they've reverse engineered it. They've added defense to it. And that's what we're seeing from this team right now. And I just really, really thought it was a great explanation by Arniel of how they've done that.
Yeah, I mean, and that it's a good example. Like, let's that leads right into the lamplighter for me. I mean, the Kyle Connor second goal, Sean, is all back check with what you're talking about. Mark Scheifele is there, so is Kyle Connor. That's how they get the transition offense going, both from exceptional back pressure. Kyle gets the puck in full speed. Alexander Carrier is thinking that Kyle is going to shoot it because he's feeling so good with his shot. He toe drags him across the grain. UC Saros is down and out in Beverly Hills, and Kyle Connor waits patiently enough that he outlasts Saros and then somehow still has the ability to backhand the puck underneath the sliding Carrier, who is trying to get back into the play after he got walked essentially. But that play doesn't happen without the back pressure. And Sean, Scott Arniel said it when I asked him about it. That's one of the prettiest goals you're going to see. And on the bench, what are they talking about? They're talking about the two skilled players back checking to make that happen. And guess what? When your two most skilled players on the team or two of the most skilled, whatever you want to say, however way you want to say it, when they're doing that and demonstrating the buy-in, the other players have no choice but to play with that same level of effort. And, it's just impressive to see. Kyle Connor is very understated, if you will. I've said this before, the whole KFC, like he should be wearing the KFC t-shirt for every single post-game interview, whether it's at a podium, at a stall, at a backdrop, but that's not him. But if Kyle Connor was playing in Toronto, Sean, you look up, Kyle Connor's got 11. Austin Matthews, Mr. former MVP, all we see on the shows, Austin Matthews scored again. Well, Kyle Connor's 2 behind Austin Matthews for the Rocket Richard Trophy race. So this is a guy who, I don't think you can call Kyle Connor underrated, but because he's understated, I don't think we talk about his goal scoring ability enough. Yes, as we said, last year his down year was 31, which is higher than most players' best year of their career. But he's found his offensive groove again, burying shots and getting chances like mad, Sean. Another 7-shot effort. He had 7 the other night. He's just absolutely on fire right now. And when he and Mark Scheifele are playing the way that they're playing right now, the Jets are an incredibly dangerous team. And as you mentioned, this is one of the times where now the Jets have 2 lines really going, and then they've got those other 2 lines playing well enough. And that's important because earlier on there were too many nights when the Jets had only one of their lines going. And I mean, we talked about this before, but the goaltending is going to stabilize. I mean, we're not blaming the goalies for everything by any stretch. The goalies are playing okay, but they can play better. The Jets have sub 900 goaltending in terms of save percentage. They still give up too many chances at times. And as you mentioned, I mean, Forsberg on that backdoor tap on the power play, it's a 1-goal game if he buries that one, right? So there's some things they can tighten up for sure. I think that the goaltending will continue to get better. And as you mentioned, Laurent Brossoit needs to get into a bit of a rhythm. And I think that will start. He'll play either next Friday or next Saturday against Buffalo or against Arizona. And then it's time. Now then he'll get into a little bit better rhythm. But anyways, that the Kyle Connor goal is my lamplighter. And, we should give that promo a big hit here before we roll out.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, if you that's Kenny's lamplighter.
Yeah.
Hashtag lamplighter, hashtag TCB, whatever you want to do. I agree with him. I think that you, though, should share your lamplighter, your favorite goal of the game, or what you thought was the best goal of the game. And the reason you should is if you do, you are automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you cannot wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your very own 8-pack of frosty, delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale, the nectar of the gods, you know what to do. Head on down to Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where we will be having our December Christmas /holiday /December to remember /December to dismember, as some of the wrestling fans in the show have been talking about. It's got all kinds of names. Why? Because you can't just give an epic party like that one name. You've got to give it a bunch of them. It's going to be great. Join us down there on December 10th. If you haven't been down there,
here's the link.
Awesome
Here's the
pizza,
link.
Awesome appies. Ken's going to throw the link in the chat room there, people. But join us down there. Your ticket gets you your first drink and all the pizza and appies that you can eat. And like I said, if you have not been to a big room Kenny and Renny party at TCB, you don't know what you're missing. And those who have been know that you'd be missing a lot if you didn't go again. So we'd love to see you down there. We love interacting with our friends. We love doing the live show. And I think maybe, just maybe, Ken is waiting to apologize for his take on tearing apart the first line. I think he's waiting to do it live, and he's going to walk around the room and solemnly shake all of your hands and apologize, especially to the ones of you who he led astray, who actually followed with that take. Absolutely crazy. Great lamplighter pick, though, tonight. And that brings us to our winner of the lamplighter from our last show, and that would be Dave Chapeles. I don't know if this is a relation, but There's a Nadine Chapelas on Twitter that
Okay.
shares Costco deals that I've been following for years, and Mrs. Rennie follows her religiously, where she goes like to the Regent and is like, "This is on sale right now." It really is actually helpful. I don't know if that's a relation. If so, Dave, tell her thank you. We've been following her for years, and she helps us build our Costco list. But Dave, you've got work to do other than that right now. You got a direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. You need to send me your full name, which is probably Dave Chappelle's, and an email where I can send you your very own voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale. You got to do that before the next game, so lock it in, Dave. Get on that, and congratulations for being the latest Lamplighter winner. Ken, let's get into the keg save of the game, a game where I don't know. To me, off the top of my head, there's one save that UC Saros makes off a Kyle Connor one-timer on the power play that was better than people thought. But it's hard to give a guy a save of the game, A, when he's on the opposition team, and this is a Jets show, but B, when he allows 6 goals on the night. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that the Dylan Sandberg block on Philip Forsberg at the end is going to be my choice here. And, as we mentioned, I mean, there have been a few, a lot of nights when the Jets have sub 900 goaltending right now. I think this is not pointing the finger at the Jets goalies. I think they need to be better, and I think they will be better. And I also think that the Jets need to be better in front of them. So I think this is another night when we're going to give a nod to somebody else. Lauren Brossoit did make some important saves, but I thought that Dylan Sandberg, this is more of a cumulative effort. 9 shot blocks is an absurd number, and doing a great job in those moments was important for Dylan Sandberg. So I'm gonna give the nod to him on this one here.
Okay. I agree with you as well. But that's kind of a Johnston Group got you covered play as well, don't you think?
Yeah, I like Lowry as the got you covered.
Okay.
Just again,
All right.
same kind of idea. I mean, it could have been on a night where there were more glorious saves.
Let me close out the keg, and then we'll have that conversation. But I agree with you on that, and it's the same deal. If you are interested, or the reason why you should share with us your keg save of the game, A, because it's fun to do it. B, it's fun to point out when we're wrong, which can happen from time to time. Some more than others. But hey, any of the 3 keg locations, you will be getting a $50 gift certificate if you share with us your keg save of the game and your number gets picked out of the hat. This happens sometimes. This sweet hat here that I know DI was loving the other day there. Anyways, I digress. Share with us your keg save of the game, and you are automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate you can use at any of the 3 keg locations in the city of the Winnipeg. Each building is gorgeous as the next. Do that and get picked, and you will be getting one of those $50 gift certificates that the keg is making rain all over the Kenny and Renny show this year. And that brings us to our winner, and that would be the winner of the keg save of the game from last show would be Leslie Michnick 8113, who left the comment
regular,
like we had asked for some people to do. Definitely a regular, left the comment in the comment section below the YouTube video. You are the winner of the $50 gift certificate, but you got to claim it first, and you got to do it before the next show. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds, your full name, which I'm assuming is Leslie Michnick, and an email, and I will get you your $50 gift certificate to the keg, where you can enjoy all that great food. And Kenny, I know we've been talking about it. We've actually set a date to head out to the keg. We're going to go check it out is it the 14th of December?
Yes,
so
sir.
If we have recovered from the Kenny and Renny December to dismember, if we've healed from the wounds that are sure to come at that party, because it's going to be a battle royal, I'll tell you that much, Kenny. We will be making it over to the keg on December 14th and having a great sit-down meal. You, Mrs. Kenny, and Mrs. Renny are going to be getting together to do that. That's going to be great. Okay, let's close out the Johnston Group. I know we touched on it a little bit. There's been a bunch of them. I think, the system, has been a got you covered, a great example of that. But you've got Adam Lowry with the 2 fights. I'm okay with that.
I just like the leadership as a whole. I mean, this is more of a cumulative award for kind of navigating some choppy waters, let's say, in terms of what the Jets haven't been having to deal with a lot of heavy stuff here in the first 13 games here. And again, for some folks who've been asking, there's not a ton of there's no real update in terms of when Rick Bowness may be back. Nothing new on that front. Yeah. And right now Scott O'Neill and the coaching staff doing a great job, and they'll continue to do so and wait.
I don't know if you noticed, but in that game, the Rangers game, when Wheeler came back, Cheech was doing color for us. And he got a text right in the middle of the show from Rick Bowness. and I thought it was kind of hilarious because he gets this pipeline to the guy who's talking with him in real time about the game and everything having to do with it. And rather than mind him for that, he's told a story about John Shorthouse and how often John Shorthouse texts during the game. I thought it was an interesting moment. We had a pipeline to the guy everyone wants to know what's going on and how things are going. And it kind of went unused. It was a little bit weird. Anyways, I think you're all over it. Johnston Group got you covered. Play of the game. I agree with it 100%. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Ken, a couple. Let's do this. We've done this in the past. Give me three, if you can, off the top of your head, just three things that you found interesting about tonight's game, or something that you wanted to get out about the Jets, and just make 3 points. We don't have to go too deep on them. Just three things that we can pop out. What do you got? And if not, I can go first if you'd like.
Yeah, you can go first. I've got a few thoughts, but why don't you go first since it was your idea?
Okay, I'll go first. I think we're starting to see a really good mix from the Winnipeg Jets, right? We've got that kind of heavy play that the third line does where they're crashing the net. It's a very direct line to the net. They're seeing offense off that. That's really difficult to handle. And I think when you've got a team that shares a common identity like the Winnipeg Jets do, which is this system, the dogged back checking, all that kind of thing, there's an identity now, a clear identity to this team. But there's also a very clear and distinct identity, I think, from line to line. And I think tonight was one of the reasons why I'm so impressed with it, is I think we're starting to see that good mix, and how that mix is hard to handle, right? You have to dig your skates in the ice, and you have to fight for every inch of ice when Adam Lowry's line is out there. And then all of a sudden, Mark Scheifele's line comes out, and you've got this line that is absolutely cerebral and smart and skilled and speedy. And all of a sudden you've got to handle that. It's an entirely different, it's like going to war and walking into a coliseum full of gladiators and you're fighting this guy with a sword. And then the next guy comes and he's got like a ball on the end of a chain, right? It's a totally different look that you have to handle. I thought we were starting to see now this really interesting mix that we get from Vladdy Nemesnikov, who's smart, stable, defensive, Cole Perfetti, who's really starting to work that hockey IQ of his, and Nick Ehlers, who I think we're starting to see more and more flashes of the Nick Ehlers style game that we've come to know and love over the years. You're starting to see that mix gel together and create some opportunities. And then that fourth line, I know I said that about the buy and the sell. I'd be selling on the offensive ability of Rasmus Kupari right now. But that line did generate their opportunities. They generated a little bit of a grind. I know we had the conversation last show about, are they doing enough? I still think you'd like to see a little bit more out of them. You don't have to when the top line is doing the things they're doing and the third line, but at some point in the season, mark my words, the Jets are going to need something for that fourth line, and they better be ready when it's time. But I'm really, really liking the mix that I'm seeing from them right now. Jets building was great tonight. I know that the crowd wasn't, did you see what the crowd was? I'm guessing it was in between 11 and 12,000, Ken. But I think that it feels like that building is getting its mojo back. And I like the idea of that. It was really into it. The refs used to suck chant, all those different kind of things. But that building got loud at some points. It was enjoying itself. It was fun watching that kind of hockey. If you haven't checked into a Jets game live for a while, it may be something you're interested in doing because it's a fun atmosphere in there. And then Laurent Brossoit not having the best start. I said I was going to say something about this. I'll touch on it. I think the Jets need to, and I know he's great. I've said this before. He's one of the best, if not the best goalies in the world in Connor Hellebuck. But I don't think the Jets can continue handling the goaltending situation in Winnipeg as give the ball to Connor, let him carry it as long as he should, and then every once in a while toss the other guy in. It's not working for Laurent Brossoit. Laurent Brossoit, we saw, was a really good goaltender down the stretch with the Vegas Golden Knights. He was in the playoffs with the Vegas Golden Knights. We're not seeing that in any of his 3 starts so far. He looks like he's struggling, and I guess he's struggling. He came in with the mindset that he was going to come here and try and prove that last year wasn't a fluke and that he deserves more crease time, and he's being tossed the scraps right now from Connor Hellebuck. I'm not saying they need to be a tandem system or anything like that, but this whole thing where it's basically like run it as long as you can with Connor Hellebuck until you can't anymore, and then just throw a game to Laurent Brossoit, it's not working. They need to manage it differently. They need to give Laurent Brossoit a feeling that he's more valuable to the team, other than a guy who just every once in a while gives Connor Hellebuck a night off. Your 3.
Yep. Yeah, there's Tracy Okranek, 12,199 is the crowd number. I just double checked, which she beat me to the punch right there. So nice stick tap there. My 3, top line domination, impressiveness from them, really on a roll. Mark Scheifele's 2-way play, I think, has been underrated, at least understated. He needed to improve it, and he has put in the effort to improve in that front. I think, we were talking about this during the intermission, Sean. I mean, Brendan Dillon just flat out got caught flat-footed on the first goal against at the blue line. Nate Schmidt tried to lay out and, nice toe drag by Philip Forsberg. But I love the way that Brendan Dillon responded. And it didn't matter if he got a goal or not on the slapper that ended up counting after it was initially waived. Brendan Dillon didn't let a play. It doesn't let. He's a veteran. He doesn't let a play like that bother him. Comes back, finishes the game with 5 hits, scores a goal. Physical player, did a good job on the penalty kill. All of those things. So, like the way that he responded. And you know what, Sean? Here you go. You've been ripping me all game here, but I'm going to give you a shout out on the good here with David Gustafsson moving to center for the second game. Let's call it. Doing a nice job in the middle. And David Gustafsson, as we've been talking about, has put himself in the position where when Gabriel Velarde comes back, he's not automatically going to be the guy who comes out. Rasmus Kupari is where David Gustafsson was last year in terms of, he has no goals in 13 games. Now, he's doing some good things that are definitely evident out there. He works incredibly hard, physical presence, can really skate, all of those things. But right now he's not producing. And, what David Gustafsson was told is you better produce or you're not in the lineup. So that competition continues to roll along. And I like the move for a lot of reasons. I also like Kupari on the wall because I think that, he's a straight line player. And I think this way Gustafsson is a guy who, has a little bit more experience playing down low defensively. He's a very smart 2-way player. So for me, I like the way that they've done that. It doesn't mean automatically that Kupari will come out either. I mean, it's still, there's time for both of those guys to continue in this battle. Right now, David Gustafsson doing a nice job to battle. And, this is the other thing about Brossoit. Like, I didn't love the second goal. I know that Philip Forsberg has a good shot and he kind of caught him by surprise, but that's one that went right through him. And I appreciate the fact that Laurent Brossoit doesn't get rattled. Lets in a goal he may not have liked very much, but he didn't crumble. He ended up doing a great job. Yes, they got one later on, but Brossoit did enough to get the job done, and I expect his level of play to continue to get better. He's going to see more action coming up here, Sean. To your point, I mean, he's going to be in that 25 to 27 start range. I know that he's going to have to play a lot more than he did in the first 12, where it was only 2 out of 12.
My goodness, yeah. Because he's on pace for like 12 games. Sorry, no.
I mean, he's going to play now next week in a back-to-back, so all of a sudden, it's the numbers are going to go up. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think his play is going to, he had an emotional time on this last road trip. He got his ring when he was in Vegas, spoke with Mike McIntyre about that, spoke with Paul Edmonds. He was presented with the ring by Kelly McCrimmon in the room with a lot of his former teammates. It would have been something that meant a lot to him. He got the video tribute in the rink when they were there. I think that he's going to get himself into a groove here. And again, Connor Hellebuyck, the night that he had against the Edmonton Oilers absolutely turned the Jets season around. No one's asking him to play like that every single night, but he's the kind of guy that can be an elite goaltender. So far, he has been playing okay, but he has another level to reach, and I expect that he also will benefit from this break, and I think he'll be fired up to go head-to-head with Jake Ottinger and the Dallas Stars, and I'm excited for that game on Saturday. It's a heavyweight tilt. Get ready to go. It's going to be an absolutely great game, and can't wait for it.
Just on this from Terry Trey, says LB had an opportunity to steal the net early in the season, didn't transpire. I'll agree with the idea that he had a chance to show maybe there was something there, but he's not stealing the net from Connor Hellebuyck. I can't imagine what would happen to transpire for the Jets to get to a point where they were starting Laurent Brossoit over Connor Hellebuyck. I just don't see it happening, especially with him signing up this year. Anyways, good takes to close out there, Ken. I like that 3 times format. Hey, people out there, if you like that, where we just try and touch on 3 topics towards the end of it, sometimes to close out the show when it's a busy game like this tonight, I don't mind doing it. If you're okay with it, we're okay with it as well. I wanted to bring up this comment here because I love this, and I absolutely love when people give shout outs for the stuff that's done on this show, because I was thinking about this the other day. Our design is done by a viewer, our music done by a viewer, a whole bunch of the ideas. The Pristine Roofing Wake Up Call was the idea of a viewer. You're talking about another viewer with the Sweet Lou Buy or Sell. So much of what we do here is just not a reflection of Ken and I. It's a reflection of all of you who are along for the ride with us. Love it. So I love this comment by Paul Robert, who says, true story. I was driving in the Ottawa area listening to KNR, the Coyotes game, with the windows down when Enter Kenny hit. The guy in the car next to me at a light gives me a thumbs up and asks what band that was. Well, if you all don't know it already, it's Tristan Rivers, who does Ken's entry music, Enter Kenny. He does Sean's Headband. He does Bring in the Hammer. He does Scotty Billuck's opening music. He is, in my opinion, a musical genius who gets these songs and brings out the essence of who each of us are. That's not easy to do. I think that we've got the best music in the podcast business. I absolutely love it. It's good to know that random people in the city of Ottawa are thinking so as well. So thanks, Paul Robert, for sharing that story. Ken, you got something to say before we go?
Yeah, for folks on Saturday, we know it's a crazy sports day, so we're not going to be up at the usual time. We're going to go up a little bit later in the evening. I know, we love to do the live stuff, but because most people's attention after the Jets game will turn directly to the CFL West final with the Bombers hosting the Lions. You're going down to cover it. So we're going to be going up a little bit later post-game show. So keep your eyes, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll try to promote it as best we can in terms of the distinct amount of time. But we're going to be going up a little bit later, so if folks are wondering where things are at, that's where we're at for Saturday's post-game show. We want to leave enough room for this to be an epic doubleheader for Manitoba sports fans, and then we'll get back at it and talk about that tilt that we talked about earlier with the Jets and the Stars going head-to-head for the first time this season. It'll be a post-game show. Yeah,
no doubt. We don't want to detract from what the Bombers are doing, no doubt. And the other part about that, Tristan Rivers.
Thank you, Tristan. What's up, my man?
Thanks for the kind words. Geez, that's the kindness is all from you. We really appreciate that. We always have to remember that this is Kenny and my side hustle, if you would want to call it that. To be honest, it's just our passion to be here and do this.
Sorry,
we have to make sure. Let me just get this over. We have to make sure in situations like this, my job is at Sportsnet, and so I'm covering the Jets game, and then I'm covering the Bombers game. So I have to wait till work's over before we can get into this. Is another reason why we're doing that. Finish
Sorry,
up there,
and
Ken.
the folks, just the Bomber fans, we know the Darren bombing is going up for Bonfire, so we're not talking about an immediate after the Bomber game. We're talking a little bit later into the evening here, so it will be later on. It will be after Bonfire. Not exactly if it will be exactly after it is over, but later in the evening is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Not directly, 5:30 kickoff. We're not talking about an 8:30 start. It'll be probably a little bit later on. So, anyways.
Sorry, Roy Mack was just talking about his phone's been buzzing in his pocket a lot lately. Anyway,
Easy.
Hey, appreciate everyone being along for the ride. You're on it tonight, except for all of those with the Stockholm syndrome on Kenny's takes. I'm feeling bad for you for when he eventually comes out and admits he's wrong at the show, and you're all left there on December 10th feeling dismembered by Kenny at the December
Just
to
stop
dismember. It's going to be a tough one, but thanks for joining us, everybody. And like I say, every single show, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate and support our sponsors who fight to keep this conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Johnston Group, Cambrian Credit Union, of course, the Keg, and TransCanada Brewing Company, where we will be on December 10th for the December to Remember / Christmas party. Ken had thrown it in there. Get your tickets. Throw it in there one last time, Ken, for everybody, or people will be able to scroll back in the show and find it. Find the link, get your tickets. We'd love to see you there. We want it to be an absolute banger because with the music that we have and the takes that we have on this show, everything Kenny and Renny is an absolute banger. So let's keep it that way by selling out that place on December 10th. Hoping to see you there. In the meantime, we will see you on Saturday after the Dallas Stars Winnipeg Jets game and after the Winnipeg Blue Bombers game. It's going to be a late one, but we'd love to see you there. Hope to see you there. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.